Everywhere you look online, there's always somebody complaining about Rust being too difficult for solo players. In this video, I'm going to show you how you as a solo player within only 1 to 3 hours of playtime can make it from the beach to a base with a tier 2 workbench, weapons, and all 3 cards. If you're looking for more of a challenge, yes, you can sort servers by the most amount of players on them, but if you're watching this video, you're probably not skilled enough to compete on those servers. So for this showcase, we're going to be on an official vanilla trio server that averages between 200 and 300 players. If you missed my last video, I announced I'm running a community event in the near future called the Crucible Grounds. There's a Discord invite link in the description if you want to learn more. The first thing I'm doing as soon as I wake up on the beach is checking my map, and keeping in mind that we're on a trio server where teams are limited to 3 players, that means there's going to be double, triple, or even quadruple the amount of bases on the map. So I'm going to mark multiple areas on the map and try to work my way towards the one that I like the most, that is also closest to me, so that I can get a foothold down and start getting things rolling. From here, we're looking for 3 things and 3 things only. Hemp, so that we can get a bag down in case we die, food, so that we can heal ourselves with, and a road that heads to the closest marker to us where we can hopefully find some red tool crates to get a bow or a hatchet or something. All I'm doing while running down this road is collecting crates and making sure that I stick to the bushes or keeping terrain between myself and any players that I see so that I don't die. While we're running down here, we're going to be keeping our eye out for these food crates and also vans which have food crates inside of them and mushrooms inside forested areas. At this point, I'm struggling to find hemp. I've only found 25, but it's not the end of the world. The biggest deal is just making sure that you don't die, and we'll deal with getting a bag down later. I'm now getting close to my marker where I want to build, but there are players nearby, so I'm doing my best to put myself in between this wall right here so he doesn't see me run down the hill where I can hide from them. There's a supermarket right next to where I want to build, so I'm taking the risk of trying to recycle something for cloth so that I can get a bag down, because if I get a base and I can't respawn, it's not worth it. Luckily, I found a hazmat earlier which I can recycle for sewing kits and tarp. Otherwise, I'd be hitting the pink barrels to try to get some rope to recycle so I can get that extra 5 cloth. I went ahead and recycled everything else as well because, I mean, I haven't died yet, so might as well. I started running back to the road that I came from and saw some players, and they saw me, so I had to immediately run and put as many objects in between me and them as possible, and then I went and hid behind this base right here until my bag finished crafting. Now that we have a bag down in the area that we want to build, it doesn't really matter if we live or die, so I'm going to be a little reckless while trying to find out where I want to build exactly. The reason being, I want to know if there's any bases that are active around me, so I'm going to be farming up for a legacy shelter, which is only 600 wood. I scoped out this area that's just a little bit further down the road, and there's like a little mini monument and some zip lines to the left of me here where I'm planning on putting my shelter down. We're about 25 minutes into the wipe, and we've got a shelter down with a good amount of scrap, metal, and cloth to get us rolling. I'm going to get a bag down inside the shelter with the box to put all of our loot in, and then we're going to head out with nothing to scope the area. This power substation is inches away from our base, so anytime we die or come back to base, we should farm this up and drop it off inside the shelter. We've also got these zip lines over here that we can farm, but I'm only going to do that if I'm struggling because it takes a bit of time. Our next mission is to figure out where the heck the stone nodes are at so we can get a safer base down, because we've already got enough scrap to get a workbench, and we've got metal frags for doors, so we want to secure that position. Also, as I'm running around looking for these stone nodes, I'm taking note of where all the bases are at, which there are a ton of in this area, so that I know where the PvP is going to be at once I'm ready for it. I ended up getting chased around by some players that ran me into the supermarket and killed me, and then when I respawned, I found a dead player next to the substation next to us. This guy had a combat knife on him, which means that while I'm out looking for stone nodes, I can also now look for animals so that we can get a head start on animal fat for low grade for furnaces. And also remember, every time we respawn, we're farming this up. I decided to head into the snow this time since there's a bunch of players in the grasslands behind me. As I ran up on this tunnel entrance, I noticed some bags on the ground which had a bunch of clothes in them, and this one had a double barrel shotgun. As a solo player, you need to keep your ears open at all times and remember where fights happened at so that you can go check for scraps once it's all over with. And obviously, I ran back to the shelter, crafted another box, and depoted all this loot before heading back out once again to try to find some damn stone nodes. The airfield is pretty close to me, so I headed over there because it's got some good node spawns around it. Thankfully, a lot of them were stone, so I crafted a stone pickaxe and got to work mining them up, and I made sure that I only farmed enough to upgrade a 1x1 nearby and have a little bit for upkeep. I also crafted a stone hatchet and farmed like 4 or 5 trees, but figured it was kind of obvious and didn't need to show it. Also, up until this point, I've been keeping my eye out for things that I can pick up, like this medium battery and these small boxes outside of my base. This is something that players like to do. If they don't need it, they'll just throw it on the ground and get it out of their inventory, or sometimes they use it as a wall. So as a solo player, you need to keep your eyes open for things that you can get for free. I F1 killed and respawned back over at the shelter, performed our ritual of harvesting the substation nearby, and as I was depoting the loot and leaving the shelter, this car on the road saw me, and we have to assume at all times that anybody that you see also saw you. So that means it's time to move out of the shelter into our new 1x1 as quickly as possible, before they come eco-raid my little tiny wood shack. So I fit as much loot in my inventory as I possibly could, and left a few things here like a combat knife to harvest animals, and waited until it was nighttime because it's a little bit of a run to the 1x1. On my way over here, I crafted a sheet metal door so that I could take my wooden door that I had over here off and replace it immediately. Now that all my loot is here, I want it to be secure. If you don't yet have a sheet metal door at this point, then that is your primary objective. At this point, I took a break and then came back once it was daytime and farmed up some wood and stone nodes around the airfield, as well as a couple metal nodes and a few sulfur nodes. But at this point, that's not really much use to us, so I don't want too much of it, just enough to where I can start smelting it once I get furnaces. After dropping everything off, I F1 killed to go back to the shelter to pick up a tier 1 workbench that I noticed earlier while I was over there. I forgot to leave myself some scrap to repair it, but that's okay because we can just do that in a repair bench for 10 scrap, which I wouldn't be able to do without a workbench to craft a repair bench, but along my route, I was already on the way to pick up a repair bench that I saw while farming stone. I also found another medium battery in a Tesla coil while I was out, and this pig, he's bugged out. I don't know, it just happens in Rust once in a while where the animals don't move. And then I went and dropped everything off. And the reason I put so much effort into this is so that I don't have to go farm scrap, because somebody's running the airfield, somebody's running the gas station constantly, and I'm gonna die if I'm out farming the road for barrels as a solo player, which is why finding stuff like this can actually save you a lot of time. Now that I've got animal fat to make furnaces and a workbench ready to go, I'm going to expand the base out a little bit, reusing that wooden door that I replaced earlier, which I saved, and also putting down both of these batteries since I found a solar panel at the beginning of the wipe, and that way I can have these guys charged up for the future in case I struggle to get more solar panels. They'll be able to last for quite a while until I get that going. The next thing I need to work on doing is getting a tier 2 workbench so that when I find guns, I can research them and craft them right away, and I also need to start finding bodies and springs. Airfield is also going to be my main monument, especially for running blue cards to get red cards, so I'm also getting a feel for it, taking note of whether or not crates are missing, which in this case, almost everything besides the barrels were looted, so I'm also going to have to pay attention for fights that I hear around the area so that I can figure out the direction that players would be coming from if they're heading inside airfield. I found a dead body in the fuse building, and this put me into stealth mode because I never heard anybody fighting. After clearing out the second and first floor, I decided to recycle and get out of here as quickly as possible. Since it looks like a majority of the larger monuments around my area are going to be looted 100% of the time, it's going to be difficult for me to find military crates. So my goal now is to go get some green cards so that I can start running puzzles to get more military crates, which will allow me to gain more scrap and potentially find a gun. The main goal, however, is to just get enough scrap for a tier 2 workbench. I put my double barrel away because I don't want to lose it in case I die, and I headed over to the train tracks to drive a train all the way over to military tunnels, which basically guarantees me a green card. I brought the bare minimums because really all I want to do is kill one scientist and hope that he gives me the green cards, maybe have to kill 2 or 3 at most. I decided to go once it gets closer to nighttime because players tend to go inside their base during the night. As you saw from the previous clip, I got shot the hell up on the train, so I'm out of bandages now, and I'm just going to hit a couple barrels around here and hope that I can find some rope or something. The scientist that's usually on the bridge was taken, which means there's players around here that are taking the military tunnels regularly, so I needed to be careful. After hopping down, I noticed the scientists were still inside of here, which is good news. I started to take the first one out, but he was aimbotting me as soon as I peeked this corner, so I needed to go recycle that rope that I found to heal up. There's also a food crate in here, which gave me some water that once I stopped bleeding, drank to heal myself. After heading back inside, I heard the scientists were shooting somebody, although it was just some prim kit that I ended in one bow because I guess the scientists tore him up, so GG. He probably snuck in once he heard me fighting scientists, but I almost died, so I had to go recycle, which is just crazy timing. And the first scientist that we killed had 2 green cards on it, which is even better. Mission completed. I finished off this other scientist that's in the back over there so he doesn't shoot me while I try to loot this guy. And it looks like he was about just as prepared as I was, so he didn't really have too much on him. This other scientist in the back gave me a 3rd green card, and then I headed straight back to the train from here and went back to my base. The next mission is to get a blue card, so I headed over to the sewer branch, which was also located very close to my base. Nobody was here, and I found a med kit underneath the jump puzzle, so I recycled that, got some med syringes, grabbed the blue card, and then headed straight back to my base. We're about an hour and 10 minutes into the wipe now, and about 50% of that is just running between destinations. So do keep in mind that I got pretty lucky with obtaining the blue card because a lot of the times those monuments will be ran, which is where the 1 to 3 hour estimate comes into play. So we're obviously going to take the green card and blue card and run straight into airfield to try to get a red card. While I was running in, I heard somebody getting raided, and I noticed that there's a base off in the distance that I was jumping to see, and we'll have to go check that out in a little bit. Again, all of the loot inside airfield is not here, so I just went straight to the fuse room and headed down into the puzzle. After making my way down, I opened the blue room and got what is possibly the best loot I've ever gotten off a scientist before. I decided since all the crates above me were looted already that I could probably get away with recycling, and then I headed straight back to my base. At this point, we have enough to craft a tier 2 workbench, as well as learn a gun once we get one, and we've got all 3 cards. We got a good amount of loot going for us, so it's time to figure out how we're going to get those guns. I headed over to that base that I saw from airfield, and it looks like it's been raided, so I investigated, didn't find anything of value inside of it, but I did notice that there's some bases on the other side of it that have shops. After taking a look, they've got some good stock, they got a bunch of different guns, and it only costs a little bit of sulfur. So naturally, I went back to base, got a pickaxe, and went to go farm enough sulfur to get one of each of their weapons. The airfield really came in clutch because it's got a bunch of node spawns around it, and there's these little rock formations that I can use if anyone starts shooting at me that I can run towards, as well as a ton of bases that I can hide behind. I went over to the base with the shops and heard that they were farming trees, so I snuck inside of this raided furnace base and waited until they were done. I started sneaking up to the shop, and I wasn't sure if they were hostile or not, so I prepared my inventory slot 1 to take the gun that I'm about to buy. And it looks like the vending machine with the guns that I want are on the other side of the base, so I bought the semi-pistol and a few med syringes and then quickly ran around to the other side. Luckily, the semi-pistol already came preloaded with 10 bullets, which was good for me in case they came out of the base. A lot of the times, player shops like this will sell bullets alongside of their guns, but since the semi-pistol was already loaded, I figured both of these guns were going to come preloaded too, and I've also got both types of bullets at my base to research. I was very concerned that since this guy was just farming wood and he's inside of his base, that he was going to run up to his shooting floor and try to kill me, so I ran back to the furnace base that I came from as quickly as possible while looking behind me. As soon as I stepped up to the wall of the base, I heard somebody farming a node in front of me. I really hope that this dude did not live in the base that I just bought these guns from. He probably did, and he ended up giving me a bunch of loot, so thank you to this guy, whoever you are. I sucked up as much loot as I could as quickly as possible and got the hell out of here. And there you go. It's about 2 hours into wipe. I've got a base, I've got batteries, I've got enough scrap to craft a tier 2 workbench, I've got multiple different types of guns, and enough scrap to learn 1 or 2 of them. And at this point, it's up to you where you would like to progress further. This is one of the strategies that I use as a solo player, which basically guarantees progression. It's up to you now to go out and look for fights, to farm up to raid, learn more BPs, whatever you might want to do. In my case, I went and found an airdrop, expanded my base out a little bit further so that I have roof access, and started to roam around and figure out where active players were that I could try to get some fights with. That's all I got for you guys today. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, leave a dislike if you didn't, and I'll catch you in the next one.